town is full of buildings, some tall, some short, some wide, and some narrow. The buildings are flats and houses and factories and shops. They're built in streets. The streets have cars and buses and lorries driving along them. A river runs through the middle of the town. The river has large boats and small boats on it. There's a bridge across the river so that the cars and buses and lorries can get to the buildings on the other side. The cars and the buses and the streets are full of people. In fact, there are a lot of people in a town. Do you live in a town? Mary, Mungo, and Midge live in this town. They live with Mary's mother and father in this tall block of flats. They live right at the top. There are 8 flats built on top of each other. Mary, Mungo, and Midge live in the flat with the flowers growing in the window box. There's Mary. There's Mungo. And there's Midge.
Oh, boy.
Mary, Mungo, and Midge have a large, sunny room to play in. A room full of games and toys and picture books. Mary's always very busy. She's always got something to do. Today, she's writing a letter to her grandmother to thank her for a birthday present. Mungo is helping her. He's a wise old dog, so old and wise that he can usually help Mary with whatever she's doing. He's holding the paper down to make it easier for Mary to write. Mary's other friend is Midge Mouse. He's usually very difficult to find because he's very small and runs very quickly. He's very inquisitive. That means he's always trying to find out things. What does he want in that toy lorry? Ah, his flute. Midge likes music. He likes it so much that he's learned to play a flute. But he only knows one tune so far. You listen.
Yep.
I wish that mouse would learn another tune.
At least we know where he is. Where he was.
I wonder where he is now.
Oh, boy.
Still
This
here?
guy.
Good. Now you're here, will you help me too? Will you stick the envelope down for me? Just lick the shiny bit, and it will get sticky.
What a funny taste. I'll have to help you now. What's an envelope for, anyway?
You stuck my letter inside it. Now I'm going to write my grandmother's name and address on it, so the postman will know who to give my letter to.
Why does a postman have to give it? Why don't you give it yourself? Silly mouse. If Mary could give it, then she needn't write. She could just say thank you very much to her grandmother. But her grandmother lives such a long way away in the country that it's too far for Mary to go herself. So she's writing a letter instead. But if it's too far for Mary to go, how does it get there? Oh, don't ask so many questions.
Now for the stamp.
What's a stamp for? Oh, Midge.
Mungo, don't get cross with Midge. He's only small and quite young. A stamp is very important, Midge, because it's a way of paying the post office people, like the postman, for all the things they do, so that the letter gets to the person it's being sent to. Mungo, will you stick it on for me, please?
It's stuck on Midge. You silly mouse.
Just a moment, Midge. That's better. Now, Mungo. Thank you. The stamp has to be stuck in this corner.
I'll make sure it doesn't fall off. Now, Mungo and I will go and post it for you.
Oh, boy.
The letterbox is just outside the flats where they live.
Oh, God.
But as they live in a flat right at the top of the building, they go down to the street by the lift.
Yeah, this
They
red
have
lift
a special
door.
way of doing it.
Yeah, this is the beginning.
Goodbye, boys. Don't be long.
Mary, are you sure you don't want to go with them? I mean, the last time Midge was completely off the rails.
We must remember to make sure the lift door is shut. But as usual, Midge was in too much of a hurry. He was already outside the flats,
Midge.
waiting at the letterbox. Oh, all right. You post the letter, Midge. It's very dark in there. Mind you don't fall in, Midge.
Midge. Midge. Midge!
Midge? Midge, are you all right? Midge, you silly mouse.
Yeah.
Midge soon got over the surprise of falling in, and then he got used to the dark. He could see quite a lot of letters and postcards. Interesting place, the inside of a letterbox. I like it here. I think I'll stay here and see what happens. So Mungo sat down near the letterbox and waited as well.
Are we going to see yet another postman? Man, you guys do love a postman.
Midge was enjoying himself so much, he didn't hear the postman arrive in his van.
Right on time.
Mungo barked when he saw the postman clear all the letters out of the letterbox into his sack. And he barked louder when he saw Midge being cleared into the sack too.
There he goes.
For that inquisitive mouse had decided to go with Mary's letter to see where the postman was going to take it. The postman took it to the post office. Inside the post office, Midge had another good idea. He would stay with Mary's letter to make sure it reached her grandmother. He would
Responsible.
also find out how a letter goes all by itself on such a long journey.
Okay, here we go.
Midge was very interested and very excited. In fact, he was so interested and so excited that he nearly got caught in the machine that makes a mark on each stamp.
Midge!
That must be the postmark, so that the stamps can't be used again. All the people in the post office were much too busy to notice Midge, so that when Mary's letter was put into a hole with other letters going to the same place, Midge was able to climb in with it. All the letters in Midge's hole were collected, and Midge watched them being tied in a bundle. The bundle and Midge were put into a bag. The bag was put into a van. The van took them to a railway station.
Were there
And
specific
Midge and the letters were put on a train.
mail trains? I'm assuming. Interesting.
When the train started, it was beginning to get dark. But it was even darker inside the post bag, and very uncomfortable.
Well,
At last, the bag was opened. Midge looked out. It was like the inside of the post office, except that he was still on the train. The postman reached for Mary's letter. No, Midge still hadn't been seen. The postman looked at the address on Mary's letter and put it into another hole. Midge watched it carefully. He really felt he was looking after it now. He wasn't sure how long he waited, but he knew that it was quite a long time because he was getting very tired and very hungry. Cheese! I can smell cheese! one of the postmen was eating a cheese sandwich.
Get
Some
ready.
of the crumbs fell onto the floor.
Oh boy. Oh,
Oh, delicious. Oh, scrumptious. Oh, perfect. After that, Midge felt much stronger and fatter.
well,
He also felt rather sleepy. It was morning when Midge woke up. He wasn't in the train anymore. He was at a railway station in the country, in another bag, in another van. The van took him from the station to a much smaller post office in a village. Soon, another postman came and sorted out all the letters. Midge watched him. He thought the postman looked rather like Mungo.
this is the first postman I've seen on a bicycle, I think.
Midge was there at last. He felt very pleased and proud as he stood on the doormat with Mary's letter. Mary's grandmother thought Midge was very clever to bring the letter such a long way. She gave him a special breakfast of cheese and cake crumbs and milk.
Oh, nice.
Then Midge felt rather sleepy again. And while he was asleep, Mary's grandfather made a special box for Midge to travel home in. There was sawdust on the floor and more food, and there were holes in the side so that he could breathe and see out. And there was a label that said, "Mouse, with great care."
Okay.
The box was put on a train and after that, onto a lorry. The man from the lorry carried the box very carefully into the flats and knocked on Mary's door. "One mouse for delivery to Miss Mary."
Midge! Oh, Midge, you're back! Mungo, Midge is back!
Mungo pretended not to be very interested, but he had been very worried. Midge had been away for 2 whole days.
2 days.
"Oh, you're back. I suppose you're going to say that you took the letter to Mary's grandmother yourself." "Yes, me and several postmen."
How did you get there?
"Oh, by van and train, you know. Oh, and then I went on a bicycle." "What was the van like?" "Oh, not very interesting. I didn't bother to look." "That means you couldn't see it. You were in the postman's sack." "The train was very interesting. And postmen eat cheese sandwiches." "Is that all you can remember?" "Of course not. I'll tell you all about it." And so he did. It was a very, very long story. But you and I already know it all, don't we?
This mouse and this lorry. There's a real connection there. Yeah, adorable. So, I mean, also, again, very educational. So, obviously, this episode is showing kids how letters travel from point A to point B, and we're using Midge as a way to sort of like to go on that journey. A couple of things stand out to me. One is, again, the animation, right? The color palette, the style of animation. I watched a thing a while ago about Sleeping Beauty, Walt Disney's version of Sleeping Beauty, which was when I was a kid. It was one of my favorite animated films. I loved the look of that film. And one of the things that had to be pointed out to me, because I didn't really sort of, clock it while I was watching the movie itself, is that the animation in that particular film is virtually all straight lines. It's all straight lines and right angles. And as I'm watching the cityscape in this show, I'm kind of reminded of that. It's a lot of right angles. And then I was sort of noticing as they were heading out into the countryside that the lines turn much more kind of rounded. And so there's like a traveling river, or there's like a rounded mountainscape in the background. But once you're in that city, like it's all sort of straight lines. And I think like that really lends itself to the differentiation between the two, obviously, but then also this very sort of constructed idea of the city and the way that Mary is living, and what sort of town like life is really like. I guess there are mail trains. And I guess now that I'm thinking about it, I guess we have mail trains in the United States also. And I know that not because I've seen one, but because as I say the words mail train, I'm realizing that there are songs, I think, about mail trains. So I guess that also exists, although I wouldn't be able to pick one out of a lineup. It looks like your mail trains are very sort of recognizable if they really are that color and have that sort of designation on the side. Once again, Midge is out here just living life, like living the way that we all dream. And the other thing, I guess, that I was noticing, as an educator, really, is at the beginning when Midge is saying, like, what is a stamp for? And what is all this or whatever? And Mungo was sort of like, oh, Midge, whatever. Don't, kind of trying to give him a hard time for not knowing. I love that Mary was sort of very deliberate in saying, like, hey, wait a minute. It's okay that he doesn't know something. Let's just tell him what it is. Sometimes as an educator, like, people like to make the answer like a really sort of difficult thing to get, and they feel like that's somehow character building or whatever. That drove me crazy as a kid, and it drives me crazy as an adult also. Like, stop gatekeeping information. Like, tell someone what the thing is and then have the more interesting conversation about like what it means, So I love that there was that moment. To me, again, like as a teacher, that's the kind of thing I like to really see. I know people love this show. People always talk about this show. It must have been like really, really influential. And so, I'm thrilled that I get to watch it and just sort of see what's next with our pal Midge specifically, but also Mary and Mungo as well.